So in this next video, we're actually going to be going over how to create some more complex views. Specifically, we're actually going to be going over how to create something similar to this. So when I hit resume, it's actually going to get us back to where we were when we finished off the last video. So when we finished off the last video, we had a horizontal stack here with 4 items and spacers between each of them. So getting into some more aesthetic views, what we'll do, let's zoom out so we can get a better look at the phone. So we'll put this into a vertical stack. And something to note is that you can actually put vertical stacks and horizontal stacks together. So within this vertical stack, instead of putting maybe text 1, I can actually embed that into another horizontal stack. And in that horizontal stack, maybe I can write another text. And as you can see, we're creating 2 side by side in a horizontal stack, and that is part of this larger vertical stack. Now, we can put a spacer in between to kind of get a feel for how that would affect things. But all in all, nothing has really changed. I haven't learned anything new here yet. So the next big thing we're going to learn is how to essentially run through a list of items and create views based off of that. This is pretty important for dynamic views. So for example, if you were to go to fetch information from an API offline somewhere, and it would return X number of items, you'd be able to create X number of views that would essentially let you make something maybe like an about page that you might find on Spotify, or maybe some of the different views that you would find in a contact, repetitive views that's each row in the contact, for example, is something like that. So let's go ahead and get a better idea of what we're looking at here. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to use something new called ForEach. And ForEach is generally written like this. We need to put 2 things in here. We need to put something in here, and we need to put something in here. Okay? Now, what you would put in each of those really depends on what you're trying to make. So for our example here, what we're going to say is for each, and we'll put 0 ... less than 10. So what that's saying is from a range of 0 up until 10, not up through 10, what we want to do is create a text that says something simple like, here I am. So what I'm trying to create is 10 texts that all of them say here I am. Now, one of the things that's important for each is this warning here is actually trying to explain it to us. So it's saying contextual type for closure argument list expects 1 argument, which cannot be implicitly ignored. So what that's trying to tell us is that we need to have a way to keep track of where we are in this loop, essentially. So you can think of this as a loop that runs a total of 10 times, or 0 through up from 0 up until 10, not through 10. So as you can see, once we fix that issue, we have a total of 10 different views here that say here I am. So far we are on track for what we're trying to do. Now to make that even a little bit more dynamic, instead of saying, so if you've ever seen this before, this is essentially it's essentially saying that the variable that we were trying to keep track of is never being used. So let's give us a value of underscore essentially meaning that it's not going to be kept track of. Let's go ahead and change that to index. Something a little different actually. We'll do indicator. So what that means is that I can actually make this text field, instead of saying a text field that says here I am 10 times, I can actually make it say indicator. And what we'll find is that it'll in fact show us 10 different views, and they'll say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But what it's not liking here is that I'm trying to submit, as you can see, an int when it's looking for a string. So we can use string interpolarization here, and we can write it as so. So as you can see, I got 10 views here. Each one has the number of the loop, of the iteration of this loop. So you just create 10 views, and their numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And this is pretty much exactly as we'd expect. So if you were to read through this VStack from top to bottom, you'd see everything on the screen. You have 10 views written very simply and concisely in here. And then underneath it, we have a horizontal stack that says text1 and another text separated by a spacer. We then have a spacer between these, text2, another spacer, the image, spacer, and text4. And that pretty much wraps up how we can use ForEach to create more dynamic views based off of just giving it a solid number. Now to take a step further, let's actually see how we can use it to run through an array. So I'm going to create an array here called groceries. And when you go by groceries, you're going to want to make a list. And that is exactly what an array is. So this list, I'm going to create, it's going to have 4 groceries, 4 grocery items. It'll have bananas, it'll have apples, it'll have oranges, and it'll have blueberries. Now, I can actually use this array to create a certain number of views here. So what I'm going to do here, instead of saying for each 0 through 10, instead of arbitrarily picking a number saying up to 10, so a total of 10 views, let's say I want to create, the total number of views I want to create is equal to 0 up to the length. When you say dot count, that means count how many items are in this list of groceries. So up until the count, and that's how many views I want to create. Now when I hit resume, it's going to give me an error. And the reason it's giving me that error is because, well, actually let us go through. So if I want to continue on here now and make this inner text say each one of those groceries, rather than it saying 0, 1, 2, 3, the reason it's saying 0, 1, 2, 3 is because it's saying went through index 0, which is bananas, 1, 2, and 3. And we're just running through the numbers 0 through 3. Now, if I want to make it actually say something a little better than 0, 1, 2, 3, I can actually just make it say groceries and insert the index of indicator. Once we try again, this is the error that we had anticipated a little bit earlier. We need to write self. This is due to the scope. So whenever you have an issue and it wants you to write self or to remove self, it'll always prompt you and it'll help you fix that immediately. But as you can see now, each text doesn't necessarily say 0, 1, 2, or 3. It doesn't say the indicator, but rather says the value of the array at that index. So this is pretty much exactly what you'd expect to find. Yeah, so that's pretty much how you can create something dynamic based off of a list. Now, what you just saw is a list that I created, but theoretically that list could have been, a list of tracks that I got from Spotify, or a list of all of my contacts that I previously saved on my phone. And that's how you can create a dynamic view. All right, we'll keep moving along in the next video. Thanks.